And welcome, folks. This is a very special episode of the Cold Takes podcast. We have some incredible guests today. First off, we have Brandon from Just the Gems, and
Hello.
we have Emily from Orbalology. They have both been great friends to me, great friends to the channel, and great friends to the podcast. So let's get into some introductions here. Emily, why don't you tell folks about what you do?
So on my channel, I mostly document my gaming collecting journey. And I also like to talk about the games I've been recently playing and other kind of tidbits when it comes to collecting that's more than just showing my recent pickups and things like that. And that's kind of the direction I want to continue with the channel, is talk about some more of the hidden aspects that don't always get as much like of exposure as they probably should have on YouTube. Good
deal. All right, Brandon, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, yes, I'm Brandon. My channel is Just the Gems. I am I guess, JRPG YouTuber. Oh boy. So I collect JRPGs primarily. And I think we're going to probably talk about that a little bit tonight. And I talk about them, I review them, I compare them to each other and make people angry. Because that's fun. I guess that's fun to do on the internet. So yeah, that's what I do.
Good deal. Good deal. I think all of us have done a little bit of the make people angry thing, and definitely can speak to the wonders of doing that. So we're gonna get right into it. All right. So we are obviously all very established game collectors, I guess you'd call it. And we all have very different histories and pasts with our game collecting. So the first thing I kind of wanted to get into, I wanted to pose the question to both of you, is how did your collection journey start? Not your gaming journey, not, you playing like Mario 2 or something like that, but how did we go from a couple games as like a teenager to what is behind both of you? And we were saying mine is on the other side of the room. You can see some cool posters, but so we'll start with Brandon. What kind of got you into wanting to add to the bulk and the quantity of the collection?
Yeah, for years and years and years, basically my whole life, I didn't collect video games. I would sell them to get the next one, and it was just a revolving door sort of thing for me. And I kept a few games. I kept Chrono Trigger, I kept Xenogears, I kept Chrono Cross. Those might be the only ones actually that I kept for since I had them, right? Because those were really special to me. But the rest of them, they were in and out. And then it was, I think, I want to say 2018, 2019. Do you remember when the analog Super NT came out? 18? Somewhere around there. But basically, yeah, you can look it up. The year that the analog Super NT came out, I saw that and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, it would be great because I don't have a Super Nintendo anymore. So like, it'd be great to be able to play Chrono Trigger, if I wanted to. That, I love that game. And so I was going to pick up, I pre-ordered a Super NT, and then I was like, what else would be fun? If I had this other game that I had as a kid, Final Fantasy II or something, I don't remember which one. And so I got that. And then I was just addicted. Then I like, over the span of 2 months, I rebought every Super Nintendo game I had as a kid. And one or two that I didn't have, but had always kind of wanted. And from there, it just sort of like mushroom clouded out into this big all-encompassing, like, I want every JRPG in existence. I want to have it. I want to curate a library of just like all JRPGs. And that's actually, like, I don't know if we're going to get a chance to talk about it tonight, but that's actually something that I'm kind of shifting on, sort of due to doing YouTube has kind of shifted my goals for it. But that was the origin, was just the Super NT and making me nostalgic, and then just getting out of control.
Good deal.
Yeah, we'll have to touch on how our collecting has changed since YouTube.
Yeah.
For sure.
But to talk about my origin, so back in the day when I was first playing games, like when I was 5, 8, 10 years old, my brother and I, we shared a collection. So we never really kept our games because we always went to GameStop to trade them in and to buy the next new game or rent a game from like Blockbuster or someplace. So there wasn't really a collecting bug back then for gaming, because in order to play the new games, we had to, get rid of what we had. But really, when the 3DS came out was when I started heavily collecting once again, even though I had a very limited grad school budget. So that was the first time I really had some like disposable income that wasn't from my parents or something, where I could really devote that to a hobby I really enjoyed, which happened to be the 3DS. And when A Link Between Worlds came out, that's when I got the special edition system along with the game. And then I just started just doing more research on what sort of games were out there that piqued my interest. And that's sort of when I fell into the JRPG rabbit hole. And from there, I picked up a PS Vita, and I wanted to collect for some more modern systems, though I didn't really have a TV or a monitor at the time. So it was a while before I actually started collecting for the Switch. It wasn't until 2020 when I got my Switch Lite, and that's when things started kind of spiraling, because that's when I started having income after grad school, and just kind of buying up all the games I heard about or I thought looked really interesting. And from there, just try to pick up as many deals as possible, really, for games that looked interesting.
Awesome. Good deal. So me, as a teenager, I probably actually had more games than most people. I didn't really trade in. I didn't really believe in it. Kind of like I still don't. I'm pretty sure the only game I ever really traded in for like modern consoles was GTA 5 on like the PS3, because I just really wasn't interested in it after picking it up. But I was, yes, originally a reseller. I would go out looking for deals at pawn shops, Savers, Goodwill, even GameStop. You can catch GameStop sleeping sometimes. We ran that for about 3 or 4 years, made some good money on the side. And then I got out of it because I was getting up to 20, 30, 40 orders a week, and the time to fulfill them properly was taking away from like my enjoyment of life. So I stopped doing that, but I unfortunately did not stop buying everything. So to this day, I still spend way too much money on games. Just the other day, I went out to GameStop and dropped like $200 on stuff I don't need. But and my problem is that for me, it's gone over to like I just got boxed controllers laying everywhere. I gotta have every color of every controller. I have I think 30 Switch controllers with all the different beautiful Pokemon designs and Mario and all that. So yeah, reseller that stopped reselling but kept buying. So my next question for you guys is, have you ever used something like Emily might have used spreadsheets, or Brandon, GameEye, to get like a total value for your collection, either just for your own knowledge or for insurance purposes? Like, do you guys have any idea what your collection's worth?
Yeah, I think I just looked at this last week. That was the most recently that I've looked at it, and I think it's gone down quite a bit. Like there's been a big sinking of values, which is good, like because maybe games will be a little more affordable. But so I don't remember what it was at its peak, but I think mine is like 35,000 right now, something around there, 37.
That's impressive, especially since you just started in 2018.
Yeah, impressive
for me,
or sick.
For me, I don't really track price. I think I downloaded the GameEye app once, and then I was putting in my 3DS collection because I was just kind of curious at the time how much that was worth, because that was when the 3DS was hot, and I was thinking of maybe doing a video on that, but then I kind of scrapped it because I don't know. Game pricing for me is less interesting unless it's whether or not I want to obtain a game at a certain price level before it gets out of my price range. So that's only the time I really track prices, is if I'm interested in a title, and if it's within my budget, then I will look it up and then decide if I want to buy it or not. After it either exits my price range, or if I already obtain it, then the price doesn't really matter too much for me, even though I probably should look into the insurance issue.
Good deal. Good deal. So like for me, it's right around Brandon's value. I'd say it's probably between 35 and 50. And I only say 50 is the high range because a lot of my retro stuff I have not got around to doing, because some of it is in storage. It's scattered throughout the house. It's not like the modern consoles where each one has like a station of bookcases where I can just sit there on a time where I got some free time and make sure I've not forgotten to enter anything in. So that's what I would probably value it at. And I can tell people my advice is always to do that. Because yes, the price may not be important to you, but when I was probably 20 years old, my collection was nothing like it is now, but I probably had about 100 PS2 games. And one of my brother's friends broke into the house and stole all our electronics, including all those games. And I had, under my grandmother's advice when I was like 19 and had just moved out, we had got renter's insurance. And we were probably one of the only responsible 19-year-old couples that did that. And luckily, I was able to get basically everything back minus my deductible. And I kind of learned my lesson there. So if this place burns down, I need to be able to recoup some of that because, and we'll get into it a little bit later about the investment and the total values and stuff, but it is important because we have put a large amount of our income into this. So I definitely suggest everyone get at least a rough value, if not a full catalog. But even with someone like M, I imagine you have catalog spreadsheets, you could use those to claim insurance.
I could. It's just a question of payout because I know nowadays it's really tricky to get the amount that maybe you listed, and they have to go through, all those verifying prices to see if that's really what the insurance should be covered. And so I don't know. That just sounds like more work than I want to put into it, to be honest. And I do consider, my collection more as a hobby collection. It's not really, part of my net worth or anything. So if I lose it, then I could just start building it back up and not see as big of a monetary, loss as if someone does have that tied up into their net worth or something like that.
I would cry for months.
I would be sad. No question. It's just, I guess there's something about collecting where the hunt is so fun. And so once you obtain something, either you have to push back that goalpost to continue collecting for something else, or because I don't know, I feel like as collectors, we're never satisfied with what we have.
That is true.
Which is maybe something we could get into later too.
That is definitely true. That is the the vice aspect of this, because kind of I want to lead into this. Actually, it wasn't really on my notes, but it kind of is important. Sometimes I will admit that I am not necessarily in control of my spending with this stuff. It becomes almost like a crutch. And it like an endorphin producer where if I'm upset about something at work or something in my personal life, or I'm pissed off because a YouTube video did poorly, Jason's therapy is to go to GameStop and spend $200 like I did yesterday on games that I'm definitely not going to play right now, and figures or accessories that I definitely don't need. And I can admit that. And it's definitely something I'm going to want to work on because none of us are getting younger. And, being prudent with your money as we get older and get closer to retirement, whatever age that is for everyone, that's different. But sometimes I feel like I'm not in control. Do you guys ever feel that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had so about a year and a half ago, and yeah, I want to say it's October 2022. I sat down and I looked at a month, just 1 month of what I was spending. And there's not much that embarrasses me. I'm pretty chill about stuff, and I'll be very open about my foibles and how stupid I can be sometimes. But I'm not going to tell you on this podcast. Maybe I'll tell you offline, but I'm not going to tell you on this podcast how much I had spent on video games in that month. And it damaged me to see how much I spent. And that was when I really it was an awakening sort of moment, and I put the brakes on and I was like, I don't know if you remember in the early days of my YouTube channel, I would have these pickups videos where I had stacks of games, and it was funny, oh, look at this giant stack of games that I had gotten over the course of a month. And it was not, I was using it for similar, a endorphin booster, and it was not good. It was not good. So I've dialed it way back.
Yeah, I think making YouTube videos does make you recognize, especially if there's a habit that you keep kind of continuing. Like with video games, I would do pretty substantial monthly pickups. That was also when I had very low living expenses when I was living with my family. Uh, so I, how I was working at it was if I would sell things from various other collections, because there are other things I've collected other than just video games over the years. I would use a lot of that money just to buy any game that I was interested in or if I found a good deal for. But yeah, recently I've been trying to dial that back because it's just the amount of money and the quantity of games that I've been buying up, especially these long JRPGs, was starting to greatly outweigh the speed I was playing them. So um, I know there's a sense of urgency, especially when you're collecting games that you know the price is probably going to rise for these like limited quantity things, especially on the retro market. So for me, when it comes to game buying, I sometimes feel an urgency that I need to buy this now at this price. Otherwise, it's going to go out of my budget and out of my reach. So that was kind of what I was leaning on a lot the past couple years that I've been trying to dial down. It's not something you could dial down to a zero, of course. Um, but another thing I wanted to touch on was sometimes just the habit of buying games. I did this a lot when I was collecting K-pop and following various groups. I felt an obligation to buy something from an artist or something that I enjoy, even though I might necessarily not like the new album or something. Like I just felt an obligation. Okay, I want to support them. I need to buy this. And so I was kind of doing that with games too, in some respect, especially if there's certain devs I really enjoy or just the genre itself was something I knew that I enjoyed. So I've been trying to not do that as much, especially not doing that with brand new releases, because even though there are devs that probably do you need that upfront support, especially if they're in the indie side or something, it's just not something that I personally have the funds to contribute to every month. So
For
I think
sure.
just recognizing these kind of triggers is important, I think, in any aspect of collecting.
And I think there's like a kind of like a moment of clarity too. Like I was talking about this with a coworker because we were looking at a game case, with like new release like PS4 and PS5 games, and I think I was pointing out like Stellar Blade or something, and I'm like, Stellar Blade looks okay. People are going crazy about it, but realistically, if I buy that right now, I'm not going to play that probably for at least a year. And right now it's $70. In a year, that game will be $20 or $30. And I keep buying these games for $70 that I will come across a year later and it's still sealed. And I'm like, what did I do? I literally lost like $40 because of a FOMO feeling in front of a glass case at GameStop or Walmart. Like it's asinine.
It's $40.
Yeah.
It's the
that's a
what
whole
else
nother
that money
game
could have been
on
spent for.
discount.
And like I don't know if you guys have ever had that moment of clarity where you're like, damn, like I should have just waited. Like, yes, I would like to play Stellar Blade at some point in the future. But I don't need to spend $40 to put that sealed game on my shelf and dust it off a year later and finally pop it in the system.
Yeah,
That's when FOMO gets you.
Right. I mean, you ask, have I had that moment of clarity? Every time every time I buy a video game, I have that moment of clarity.
Every time?
Well, okay.
Even if it's something you play right away?
No, not in that case. But like, and most of the time, a new release, I'm not getting Unicorn Overlord has been sitting on my shelf since day one. I haven't opened it yet.
Oh no.
For me, every
I
once
haven't
in a
bought it
while,
yet for that reason.
Yeah,
I'll actually get like really proud because the other day, like on the eve of the release, or maybe the night it released, me and Emily were actually talking about Aiden, and I was kind of on the fence about it, and she had me check out a couple like good reviews for it, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get it, and I did, and I played it right away, and I'm playing it, and I'm promised myself I'm playing that and my digital version on like the PS Plus of Rising together, and I'm gonna finish them before. I'm not going to walk away from them. I bought it. I'm going to play it. I'm going to finish it. That doesn't mean I didn't, of course, buy like 6 more games yesterday that I'm not going to play, but I at least want to finish this one. And I feel proud that I actually played it right away. And I feel like I can keep playing it.
Yeah, you got to celebrate those victories.
Your game. You had to have played that game.
Yeah, if you hadn't picked up the Suikoden game, I'd be like, Jay, what happened?
That's what I was wondering. He was going to pass on it. I was like, what are you doing?
The last game from famed Suikoden creator, like you got to get that.
But I did also want to touch on, kind of because we're talking about like the size of our collections and some of our habits. Have either of you ever thought about what you're going to do with your video game collection in 10 or 15 years? Or, are you going to pass it on to a family member? Or if you ever have children, do you think you'll leave it to them? Or do you think when you get closer to the end of your life, you might consider liquidating it and selling it and cataloging it? Like, where do you see your video game collection in like the not necessarily near future, but the far future? Maybe when you're in your 50s or 60s and you're making decisions about how the quality of your life is going to be at the end of it.
I guess I'll take it first. I haven't done too much consideration as I'm in my early 30s, but for the most part, I've been trying to be very deliberate with what I'm buying now so that I don't have to worry about selling it later, especially if it's something I don't enjoy or I know a family member or something will enjoy. But when it comes to the collection, my parents right now are going through my grandparents' houses and things like that, and there's been a lot of friction of how to get rid of their passing parents' stuff, and I don't want to really put someone in that situation personally. So, I think this is a decision I'll have to make within the next 10 or 20 years. Just planning on, keeping my games for the long term and seeing if there's some place to donate them or to give them away for someone else who would enjoy them too, or maybe some sort of charity effort would be what I would do, unless there's a family member who happens to want them.
It looks like I put Brandon into like an existential crisis over there. You good, bro?
I'm over
Oh,
here.
no.
I'm over here in my feelings. Give me a minute. Let me just be in my feelings. No, I honestly haven't really thought about it. Like I don't have kids. It's exceedingly unlikely that I will. So passing them down is not really an option for me. And like my nephew plays video games, but he thinks the video games I play are stupid, but he doesn't know that he's stupid. So there. And yeah, so I mean, he wouldn't want them. Ethan, if you hear this, I'm
Never know. In 5 years,
I love you.
grow mature.
Maybe. Who knows? So I don't know. If it came to it and if they were worth something, I would, if my wife Jen outlives me, I'd say just sell them, go nuts, liquidate that if it's worth something.
Would she feel burdened though to sell them for you if she doesn't know the price or anything? Like it's hard to get like an estate sale or any of that stuff,
it's tricky, but like we did similar things with like her parents passed away and we had to sell some of their stuff. And did we get the best value for this? No, I'm sure we didn't, but like, it's something. And I would hopefully do as much as I could ahead of time with like, charting the prices and
resources.
Resources, putting her in touch with people who, might be able to help her figure that out. So that's the best I can think is like, if I'm not here, which is inconceivable, right? Because I'm the main character. Aren't we all the main character of our story? So I can't imagine. But yeah, I think that I would probably tell her to go nuts, have a party, sell it all.
Yeah.
So for me,
because I plan to keep my stuff at like till retirement, just to continue playing. So.
Well, I mean, it's great entertainment. I'm sure we'll still be enjoying these things when we're 50 and 60 years old. For me, that's part of why I focus on the value and being in the know and recording the value and having some record of it. Because, as I've gotten older, like I've had a couple of run-ins with mortality and I'm, currently battling some illnesses. And when you're up in the hospital and they tell you might, not be okay, those things kind of run through your head. And, if you've lost grandparents or like, me, I've lost both my parents, like I've been through all that. And I've seen what happens when people that don't know what they're doing or don't care deal with those things. And if I can have proper records whether we choose to go through like a liquidator or an estate sale company, there's at least something to start with. And because there are still many people, and even people that deal in antiques and valuable things, there are people that run pawn shops that you can catch sleeping on prices. They still think this is all garbage. So if you bring, a box of games from your dead relative to a pawn shop, they'll give them pennies on the dollar. Where if you have a proper company or a person who has experience with collecting games or dealing in them, properly selling them on eBay, Mercari, whatever, they can recoup a lot more of that cost. And if you're talking about passing away and wanting to leave the most resources for your family or friends or whoever you're leaving them to, I take that pretty seriously. So I want to, like a lot of people, when they hear collectors or me talk about value, they think I'm being petty or selfish or only care about the money, but it is still important. And I don't invest in video games for like a future thing. I don't expect it to pay off. I've seen it go up and way down. And again, I don't sell anything anymore. So I lose on everything. Almost everything I buy will depreciate, except for a couple of rare niche games. And I understand that. But whatever that's depreciated to, when I finally kick the bucket, I want to make sure that whoever I'm leaving that to gets the most they can out of it. So with that being said, we're coming up on our break. We're going to continue a little more collecting talk after the break, and then we're going to get into the subject of gatekeeping. So thanks for sticking around. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon. Today I wanted to talk about the 5 JRPGs that mean the most to me, like emotionally, right? So this isn't necessarily my 5 favorite JRPGs, although you could make an argument for some of them at least, being on my favorite list as well. But these are games that maybe they came about in a particularly important time in my life, or I was going through something difficult and the game helped me through it, or it helped me realize something about myself or about the world around me, that sort of stuff. I would absolutely love to hear some examples of games that are meaningful to you in a similar way down in the comments. Let's have a conversation. I look forward to that every time I put a video out. So thanks for engaging with me down there. I really appreciate it. Anyway, without further ado, I just want to get into it. Let's just get into it. All right, first game on my list has got to be, it really just has to be, Final Fantasy II.
Hey everyone, it's Emily, and today I wanted to share some of my latest JRPG merchandise finds that I imported from Japan. And I wanted to take the time to go into some details about the various methods that you can import from Japan, rather than just going on eBay and frankly, just overpaying for items on there. So I have 3 different methods that I used, and they're kind of pros and cons to all of them. So as I kind of share some of my latest pickups, I will get a little bit into the details about when you might want to consider one service over the other.
And we are back, and I have my special guests, Emily from Orbalology and Brandon from Just the Gems. You guys hanging in there?
Hanging in there.
Good deal.
Yep.
Brandon had some technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties be damned. We're back.
He had some flicker on his camera, but he is looking good. He's looking his dapper self. So what I did want to talk about, we didn't get to it before the break for a nice clean 2 separate categories, but I wanted to talk about investment value in collecting. Now, I know that that's kind of a hot button topic for some people. I've seen some pretty good debates online because of the volatility of it and people that are basically like hedging bets on it. And then also with the stuff like WADA and the possibility of like wide scale fraud. So what are you folks' thoughts on that? Like, do you see video games and even collectibles such as toys or things like that, scale figures, do you guys see those as viable investments?
I don't personally, just because I don't know. I feel like anything that can burn up is not something that I would consider putting money into long term. Like literally or figuratively burn up. Like, I mean, video games like have a shelf life, most of them, a good number of them. Like I have a bunch of Saturn games here that I'm crossing my fingers still work. You know what I mean? They're worth a lot of money, but if they don't work, then they're worth nothing. So, and then you add the like WADA fraud and a lot of that insider stuff that was going on with that. And that just makes me even more wary of it. It was very interesting drama unfolding in that whole thing, but definitely not something I would want to put my money into.
Yeah, I would agree that I'm not really into speculative collecting at all. Most speculative assets, you really don't want to be make up, a huge portion of your portfolio, especially for long-term gains. But I think if you want to dabble in it, that's okay. If you restrict it to like less than 5% of your overall portfolio at most, and just kind of see what happens. But again, that shouldn't be the focus. And I think what's really hard, especially when we are looking at toys, figures, games, is that when it comes to the reselling market, a lot of it is based on heavy nostalgia, right? So you have to kind of time it right to when the ideal market or the individual who would be interested in these items will have money to spare to buy these at a premium price. And unfortunately, I think a lot of games and other things right now are being kind of marketed as collectibles. And so people are just buying them in mass and even keeping them sealed. Whereas a lot of the collectibles that are like on the market right now, that wasn't really the trend back then. And so I think we're going to be seeing a lot of sealed games and things that really aren't going to be that of much worth, in my opinion. I think especially once maybe a lot of the current nostalgia stuff is kind of winding down a bit. And it's possible, when we switch to specifically for video games, the digital future, there'll be another nostalgia wave, I'm sure. But the question is, at that time, are people, do they still find value in owning these things physically? Which I'm sure there'll be a subset, but are you going to have the certain sort of buyer who's willing to pay, those outlandish prices that a lot of people are kind of predicting? So
yeah.
something to consider, I think.
Yeah, Emily, I
nothing
think,
that, again, I want to. Oh, go ahead.
I think you're right. The idea that it is possible for somebody to make a decent amount of money investing in video games, but the timing is so important because it's just everything. Like with the nostalgia stuff in particular, there's a cliff that's coming.
There's
You
a
know what I
window.
mean? And it's gonna drop off there.
We've seen
when-
like Atari games, they're worthless right now, right? Because no one wants to own them.
Right. Yeah. There's not as much
Who are alive right
nostalgia
now.
for them. Right.
So I will say,
But I think also, or
oh, go ahead.
sorry, one last point is if you do want to invest in video games and things like that, again, if you keep it to a very small portion of your portfolio, that's fine. But honestly, long-term, the S&P 500 investing is going to net you probably a larger, wealth overall, especially with its exponential growth and compounding interest over time, than just a few games that may spike up in value over time. So if that's really your primary goal, I wouldn't, lay all my eggs in the basket for video games but instead invest in something a bit more historically, as a wealth builder.
For sure.
That's all I want to say.
I will say that my background before video games was in sports card collecting, specifically baseball. And there was a huge bust at the end of the 90s and early 2000s where cards literally lost 50, 60, 70% of their value. And part of it, which Emily kind of reminded me of, is when things are marketed as collectible. And when the scarcity is not actually real. So now I still collect baseball cards a bit and sports memorabilia and autographs and such, but those things are now actually produced in limited quantities. And the cards that are valuable have very small limited quantities, 1 of 1s, 5 of 5s, 10 of 10s. Their serial numbers are low like that. Whereas in the 90s, we were told by these companies like Don Russ and Topps that if something only had 10,000 produced, that it was rare. And it is not. it literally is worthless. They literally consider many of those things that were supposedly rare to be like junk era wax now. No value at all. Basically, baseball cards before like 2000, unless you have like real vintage graded stuff, like from like the backs of like cigarette packs and cigars from like 1910, your stuff is worthless. And there was grown ass men that had thousands of dollars invested in this and thought they were going to retire off of it. And one morning in like 2001, they woke up and it's worth nothing. So that would be my caution. The only positive I have for investment is kind of the flip side, that the money you're putting into your hobby and to bring you your joy and your endorphin rush has a small investment potential. You can enjoy these items, and like you both said, if your timing is right when you're done with them, you can make a profit if you're smart about it. So that's how I view them as an investment. I don't think that when I buy a PS4 game at GameStop, it's going to blow up in value. But when I'm done with it, when I'm really ready to get rid of it, there is a possibility, if I strike at the right time, that I could make a little, or at least fully recoup my cost for the time and enjoyment I got out of it. So I agree with both of you. Don't go invest in games. Buy games you like, whether you like to look at them on your shelf or whether you're actually going to play them. Because I know we were talking earlier, I could live to 150 years old and I would not even get through like my Switch library. So forget everything else. But yeah, so what I wanted to talk about in the second half of the show is gatekeeping. Now, we had all talked about this as a friend group on Discord months ago, and we had kind of shot around the idea of doing the show. I think that the gatekeeping and tribalism in gaming and the gaming space and even adjacent spaces has gotten to a point where I think people need to come together and address it, because I think it's toxic to the point where it becomes more broad than just gatekeeping. If I was someone on the outside looking in and I saw the way people are talking on Twitter about Stellar Blade, Hogwarts, Aiden Chronicles, you name it, I don't think I'd want to be part of this space. Now, us as physical game collectors want more people to play and buy games, because that's how our tradition of physical media continues. If less people get interested in the hobby, because all of the people in the hobby are maniacs and are completely inscrutable in the way they handle themselves online and in person, no one's going to want to play games, and therefore companies will not make physical games anymore, and the digital future that we all dread will come sooner. So I wanted to address with you guys and have a discussion about gatekeeping in 3 different areas. So the first one I wanted to talk about is the gatekeeping in general in gaming. And I think this one is the original gatekeeping, where, you know, video games are supposed to be just for, you know, a certain type of person. And that's a terrible, terrible idea, right? That closes the window on our hobby when you exclude anyone, in my opinion. So I wanted to get you guys' opinions on what you think about that. And how do we address gatekeeping, whether it's aimed at, you know, people saying they don't like gamer girls or they don't like LGBT people, like any of that. It's all bullcrap. It's all awful. But how do we address that? What do you guys think?
I think like any large fandom that gains a lot of traction and has a very loud minority group that speaks, it's difficult to combat that, other than having people recognize that those who are crying the loudest are very small minorities. So honestly, I think the only way to combat it is just to show a more inclusive, you know, space in the hobby, and to share our passions, you know, with others without excluding anyone. So that's partly why I started YouTube, was because I didn't see a lot of female gamers who are also collectors for modern consoles. And I wanted to kind of show that there are, you know, us out there who are interested in this topic and who definitely create like a warm, inviting place for more to join.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the important thing to focus in on, like Emily said, is it's a minority of people that are speaking really loud. And so one of the things that I think we can do is be absolutely sure that we're not engaging with those people in any way, not boosting them in any way. It's so fun. I get it. It's fun and it's easy to retweet, quote tweet somebody and like point and laugh, look at the weirdo, look at the idiot, and get some clout points with your followers. That's fun and it's easy. But, you know, for 99 of your followers that, you know, agree with you and think, yeah, this guy's an idiot, there's that one follower who's finding this person and then rebroadcasting that message themselves.
But also,
So,
sorry, to build off on that, when you engage in that activity, you're just recycling the hate, right? So even if you respond saying this person's an idiot, that's also a response that's not, you know, that favorable. And so I don't know. I feel like there's a constant cycle right now going on Twitter of saying this person's dumb, no, that person's dumb, and it's just creating this endless cycle of just awfulness.
And if
and
you
yeah,
even if you're reboosting it, like you say, to make fun of them, your followers, some of which may be the group that's being attacked, are seeing that, and maybe that's hurtful to them to see it, because nobody likes to see, like,
exactly.
nobody likes to see crap that's mean about them. You know, like, I mean, even if you can shrug it off, like, oh, this person's nobody, I don't know them, who cares? But it's still, you know, it still hurts.
Yeah, and you don't
So
respond to bully behavior with being a bully yourself, right?
right. So like, I think
Oh.
if we have a more judicious use of the block button, until Elon takes that away from us, I don't know.
Yeah.
But using the block button more is a good starting point to keeping those voices just kind of contained in their own little corners of the internet where they can be hateful and give each other high fives about how much they hate everybody else and they're the best and whatever.
Yeah, and don't click on their posts because that only tells the algorithm to show more of that stuff.
Engagement.
So I've been
yeah.
trying to be very careful with that and muting things I see like that, just so that when I'm scrolling, that's not all I see, and that's not my, you know, my frame of how the world is reacting to this. Because honestly, it's just this vocal minority that just keeps getting boosted and becomes louder and louder and louder.
Yeah, and it's
You know-
important to realize that sharing that in any way definitely amplifies it. Like, let's just say that you two shared some hateful idiots post and you're like, look at this fool, right? So I value both of your opinions in the gaming sphere. So if I see Emily or Brandon post something, it means it's important and I should look at it. And there's probably many other people that think that way about us creators. And when we point out something, it's just bringing massive attention to it. And I agree, completely best to ignore it. And there's no winning, which kind of leads me to the second part of this. And that's the social media aspect of it, where there's such tribalism that you could make a simple statement like, hey, I played Hogwarts. And you literally could have half of your followers or people who don't know you but will still judge you turn against you because you played a video game. Now, I find that incredible. And just like with what happened with Stellar Blade recently, you could say, I'm fine with what they did to the game and I'm going to enjoy it. And literally a whole section of the internet is mad at you and literally hates you and thinks you're like the worst person in the world. Or you could say,
because they don't understand how to stand up to censoring of any form.
right.
Sorry.
But like it's so awful because for me, right, like I know that like it's literally dangerous for some of us to talk about these things or express our opinions on them. My opinion is very simple. Do what you want. Right. My opinion is I don't have an opinion. I look at case by case bases of the quality of games, right? If Brandon or Emily in a review or in an unboxing or in a pickups video says a game is really good, I might listen to that. But if Brandon tells me I shouldn't play a game because of his political beliefs, I don't care, right? I'm not belittling how that game you feel may have hurt you or goes against your beliefs, but I'm saying I'm solely judging it based on the quality. And I can honestly say that at least with these last few games, I wasn't interested in them in the first place, so I could kind of stay back. I was able to be like, well, I wasn't going to play Hogwarts anyway, so I don't even need to talk about this. Or, you know, Stellar Blade, there's a million games like that. I'm not super interested in it. Like I said, maybe in the future, but I was able to stay out of the fray. But I'm watching it and I'm like, guys, in this community, we need to lift each other up and we need to support each other. But instead, we have actual creators fighting each other over this. And it just shocked me.
Right.
It just shocked. And it's from the smallest size to the largest size. I saw like RGT was getting like threatened and people were trying to like expose him and like dox him over crap like this. And I'm like, what is going on? The dude just expressed an opinion about a video game. And that's unbelievable. So what do you guys think? How do we address the tribalism? How do we stop this from getting to the point where people don't want to be part of our communities anymore?
I think about this from two different, similar but different angles. One is, and I think if there's anybody like that is a philosopher that hears this, they're probably going to roll their eyes at me because I'm not a philosopher and I don't know a ton about philosophy. But from a deontological perspective, where deontology, to make it the simplest definition, because I'm a dumb, the simplest definition of deontology is strict adherence to a specific rule, as like this is the rule is this, and so everything we do has to be in service of this rule. So like things like the Hogwarts game, where J.K. Rowling is bad, so therefore anything that is related to her is bad and we can't support it. That would be like a deontological worldview. It's kind of the opposite of utilitarianism, right? Where utilitarianism is like the most good for the most people. Deontology is like, it doesn't matter if it hurts people. We have to adhere to this rule. And I don't know. I feel like it comes from like, so I come from, and this ties into the second point I wanted to make too, which is I come from a very high control religion background growing up. And so I am hypersensitive to groupthink. Like when I see people, even among friends, even among us, like in our discords, like when I see everybody coming down on one side of a topic, if it's like limited run games, say, I think that's a recent one where like limited run games had a CDR thing that they put out. I see everybody coming down and being like, oh, they're scamming. Oh, and everybody's upset about it. My initial reaction is skepticism, because I am so averse to the groupthink aspect of communities that I reject it. Like that's my gut reaction is to reject it and be like, well, wait a minute, there's got to be more to this, you know? So tribalism is like a combination of this sort of deontological, we need to adhere to this strict rule that we've decided is the rule we're going to follow. So whether it's anti-censorship with Stellar Blade, or J.K. Rowling is anti-trans, so we can't support Harry Potter anything. That would be like a deontological thing. And then it also feeds into this group think where it's like we're a part of this group, and one of the key features of being in a group is everybody kind of works together and it has a common goal. And you don't want to be the person on the outside of that. So you kind of get in line and you trumpet the same message that everybody else is trumpeting. So that doesn't really answer the question of how do we fix it. My solution is just be skeptical of everything. Like I said, I'm just skeptical when I hear everybody coming down on one particular issue. It's like I don't want to just get in line with everybody. I want to find out what I really think about it. But that's a lot to ask for most people just going about their lives on the internet. It's much easier and more comfortable to just kind of go with the flow, especially when it's something that you're not super personally invested in.
Yeah, and I guess to work off of that, I do find critical thinking, the way you should approach life in general. So definitely these hot topics in the news or video games should be addressed in the same way. And I think what's wrong with social media right now is how reactionary people are and giving into their emotions before critical thinking. And so it's hard to change, of course, how other people process things. But I think at least for ourselves, we could step back and try to process things, not just in an emotional side of it, but also the more logical side of it, and to assess what is really going on here. And as we've also seen, on social media, it's very easy to twist a narrative in one direction or the other, just to fit someone's either social or political views. So we have to be a little bit careful there, even with video games. But yeah, it's difficult, to tell how other people should react, of course. But I think just promoting, critical thinking and being a bit more independent and assessing things, with a rational mind is all we could really do is, you know, show that sort of kind of community or be that kind of role model, I guess, in some aspect. Not that I would consider myself a huge role model or anything, but I think it's all baby steps, right? And it's very difficult to tease apart the hive mind that's been forming online. And I think taking breaks from social media is something that helps me, especially kind of break away from that and reassess things. So I think encouraging that practice too might help others.
For sure. And the other thing I'll add with this is that whenever I suggest that people make a post on social media, imagine the possibility that your parents, your clients, your employer, and everyone can see what you're saying. Before you spout off and make all these ridiculous accusations and call people terrible things, and before you make a fool of yourself, remember that there can be many important watchful eyes watching everything you're saying. And if you get to the point where you're threatening people, it may even be the police or the government. So some restraint, some critical thinking, and being skeptical. Those may be the answers.
I think also just a positive outlook, right? I think we should all focus on the positives. And if there's something, of course, that deserves, actual criticism, that definitely should be voiced, but in a very rational way that people should respect. So I think tolerance is key too.
For sure. Folks, we got to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
I've got some bad news for you. Well, Konami has finally released the Metal Gear Solid collection on many consoles, but the Switch, of course. And of course, it launched with only the 2 NES games actually on the card. So, let's forget about game preservation. I think they may have left all that space on the card to encourage you, the consumer, to make your own Metal Gear Solid games and share them with the world. Well, Silent Hill Ascension recently dropped, continuing the string of Konami successes. But this is something truly special. It is literally a cutscene that has a battle pass, where you can pay to unlock more chances to make decisions in this incredible, again, cutscene. What has gaming come to? There's not even a game anymore. Who needs it? Just watch movies and pay.
All right, folks, we are back for round 3 with Just the Gems and Orbalology, and we are going to continue to talk about the evils of gatekeeping in the video game community. So, you guys still with me? Feeling good? It's getting late. Everyone still good? Chipper?
Yep.
All right.
West Coast is best coast.
There you go. Yeah, it's freaking early morning over here. We're burning the midnight oil.
I was on vacation a few weeks ago on the West Coast, and this Pacific time thing, I was like, I want to talk to somebody back home, and it's like, I'm like, oh, it's 11:30 there. They're all asleep.
Yep.
Like, this is terrible. I feel so lonely.
It's awful. And then I feel bad when I don't respond to people when they message me early in the morning. I'm like, sorry, I was asleep.
Yeah, and that definitely, like being on the East Coast, if I ever want to message one of you guys something important in the morning before I forget it, I'm like, wait, no, they're sleeping. Like,
you can message to me. It just might be a few hours before I get back to you.
Right, for sure. So we've talked about the the social media aspect of it. We've talked about the overall aspect of it. But I want to talk about the impact on game collecting. And I know that we've all made many collection videos, whether it's pickups or we're sharing our full collections, or whether we're giving advice about collecting. And we get comments with people that think they can tell us how we should go about collecting and how we should go about playing our games. And almost like they want to shame us for not playing these massive libraries of games. And I kind of wanted to get you guys' take on that and how it affects you personally. And also, how can we go about getting people to open up and be open to the fact that everyone has a different experience and we're all doing this for different reasons. So, Emily, why don't you go ahead and start? What are your thoughts on this?
I have a lot of thoughts on this topic. But yeah, in my experience, yeah, posting on YouTube about my collection or any sort of kind of collecting topic, I always try to be, upfront that this is just my opinion. Of course, it's not going to be scalable to everyone. And I think some people either skip that part or it just, because everyone else says that, they don't listen to that part. And it can be a little bit discouraging sometimes if you want to share something that you're so passionate about or something that you just learned and make a YouTube video about it, that other people try to bring you down for what you wanted to share, either saying, oh, you're just showing off like how much money you make or something when you show off these games, or if you were lucky to have inherited things, or you name it, or to have some sort of local reseller that's really cheap in your area. I think what's really great about game collecting is it's not a one size fits all. And we all could, decide to collect a console that we are interested in or decide not to. We didn't really get into this, but there are certain consoles that I don't really see myself ever going back to and buying. And that's mostly due to time, because I don't really see myself, spending the time to focus on those consoles when I already have plenty of games to play behind me already, and the specific consoles I've chosen to collect for. And I think also I have more of an interest in modern games and where the JRPG genre is going and moving ahead. So the only console I'm really looking to start collecting for moving forward, it's nothing really in the retro area, because I've kind of hit on all the consoles that I've owned that I have an interest in or have some sort of nostalgia for. And I'm just kind of looking towards the future, if there's going to be, of course, physical games on those consoles. So yeah, I guess my advice is you always tell people, don't listen to what the haters say, even though it's often very dismissive. I feel like whenever you want to vent or express, how one comment made you feel, and tell someone just forget about it. They don't matter. Again, I think it's good to emphasize when, people are feeling down because of a nasty comment or two. But, and then they should also, realize that in the sea of, really positive and wonderful comments, there are going to be a few stinkers that it's very difficult not to weigh you down, but it's better to kind of acknowledge those and kind of grow from them. Because honestly, I feel like if you're not growing on this platform, you're not getting any sort of nasty hate comments. And so I think that's kind of a sign that you're doing pretty well on here.
For sure.
Yeah, there's more, of course, to this topic, but I'll let Brandon talk now.
Yeah, I'm going to sound contradictory because of what you just said, but
okay, that's fine.
No, I agree with you. Understand me, I agree with you, but I have a weird situation. So on my YouTube channel, I don't know, I don't really understand why. So I don't think it's anything I'm doing. This isn't a brag, but I don't really get that many negative comments, even as like the standard proportion you would expect to get, like as a percentage, right? It's exceedingly rare when I get a negative comment. Like a disagreeable comment like that. Like I posted a video the other day about localization, like a very hot button issue. And I went into it expecting, I was like, here, this is where it's going to happen. This is where I'm going to get the negativity. It's going to come for me here. And the video is not done collecting comments, I'm sure, but like less than 3% of the comments have been negative. I'm like, I am baffled by it. I don't understand it. So this is, like I said, it's not a brag. I'm not doing anything.
I think it's because your core audience has watched the video and you haven't gotten the randoms.
There hasn't been randoms.
Are the ones with the hate comments.
The randoms that sure. Yeah. And that may be,
so
I don't get a lot of,
come.
It's really just my core audience, because I'm not really growing. Like my channel's not really growing. It's basically been the size that it's been for months now. It's like when I was going
Mine's
through
the
a period
same.
of growth.
I'm in the same kind of stink.
Well, and
It
I
hasn't grown
understand
much.
that happens as a channel goes through its life. There's plateaus and periods that can be longer.
The
where
rise
it's-
and falls. Yeah.
Right.
And plateaus.
But anyway, all that being said, I guess I don't have a ton to say about like, I haven't had to push back on anybody's negativity about my collecting. I think maybe one person that I can remember, one comment like, "Oh, you don't even play your games or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's right. I don't." Like, you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, I would have no life if like all I did was play all these games. There's hundreds of them. Hundreds and hundreds of them. Of course I don't play all my games. Like, like if you're collecting stamps, why aren't you putting them on envelopes?
Exactly.
You should be putting those on envelopes and using them to send letters and parcels,
Not just
like
look
if you're
at
collecting
the binder.
right. Yeah. If you're collecting coins, you could use those to purchase goods and services. What are you doing hoarding coins? Like, that's silly. You should be spending them. That's what coins are
Yeah,
for.
functional items that are collected for some reason get more hate than non-functional items. Like we don't, criticize people for having like a salt and pepper shaker collection, right? They don't use all the salt and pepper shakers.
Yeah, yeah. I just saw a lovely salt and pepper shaker collection at an antique store yesterday,
Very nice.
or 2 days ago, and it was beautiful. We bought 2 of them, little globe shaped salt and pepper shakers. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, they were adorable. So anyway, yeah, I just like my response to those sorts of comments, like you're collecting wrong. It's like, okay, I guess, sure, like that's weird that you feel that way. Like, what a
And voice
strange
that
choice.
out publicly.
Yeah, what a strange choice you've made to like express this in a place that people can see you. Okay.
Yeah. Like if you don't like it, why are you watching the content and clicked on a collecting video?
Right.
That's what I never
Right.
really understood, other
And
than
that's-
to drag in their toxicity with them.
I think
Right.
it's hilarious too when because recently a couple of my like price list videos have done pretty well. I got one that's coming up on like 10K, and
Mhm.
that is much larger than my videos normally do. And so just like Emily said, there's a large contingent of people that are not my regular viewers, and some of them stayed on, which is great, and I appreciate it. But a lot of them, I will state something quite plainly in the video, right? I will be like, this video is games from my collection. And in the comments, someone will be like, how did you leave this out? Because it's not in my collection. You're literally not watching all the content. Like you're skipping through it and then you're making these weird demands. And I had one the other day and they were like, I've never seen any of these games. It was on my video about cheap Switch games. And they were like, I've never seen any of these games this cheap. I want you to make a list and prove that you can buy them somewhere. And in my head, at first I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And I'm like, wait, no, I'm going to go find sold eBay listings for this guy. Like, no, go on the
Just like
goddamn
a pricing chart. Price chart.
I said on the video that I use the Game Eye app and price charting. And you didn't listen to that. And then you stumble into the comments and are like, prove it. And I'm like,
Right.
Most comments that I get are negative. They don't even watch the video. They just respond to the thumbnail and title.
Yeah. So
Sure.
that guy literally clicked through to see which all the titles were. And that's why I won't chapter it, because I don't want people doing that. I'm not going to make it easier for them to do it.
It could be good if you do chapters though and put an ad right after the chapter. So once
That's
you get
true.
monetized, that is something you
true.
could look into.
Yeah.
But
It's a hot
one of the things I've seen the most, of course, like we talked about, people telling you got to play your games and all that, but it's literally people telling you how to make YouTube videos. Like when I see guys commenting on YouTube's videos, you're both very successful, have many thousands of subscribers, you know what you're doing. I've learned so much from both of you. And I'm watching someone who doesn't make YouTube videos tell Emily and Brandon how to make YouTube videos. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? You are not qualified to tell them what to do. And even if you were, you should not be doing it in that way. You're not being constructive at all. You're being an asshole. So it was kind of.
They like to
weird for me.
backseat a lot.
It was weird for me to see it. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. You're one of the 8,000 people that watch my video and you don't like that I didn't include links to sold eBay listings.
Right.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, some people watching a collection video or a top 10 list or whatever, will it almost seems like they're personally hurt. Like they're not angry, they're hurt
Mhm.
that you didn't include this game. Like I had one recently. It was like, you, how do you, wouldn't you include, oh, what game was it? Not Code Vein, but the similar kind of game that came out more recently, action RPG anime thing from Bandai.
She's looking.
It's gonna bug me.
I own it. What is it?
I own it too.
Scarlet Nexus.
Yes, Scarlet Nexus.
I know what you're
Thank you.
thinking.
I was
I
almost
haven't played it
there,
yet.
and I was going alphabetically, and I almost got there. Scarlet Nexus, and I'm like, I was like, I might include it if I played it. I just haven't yet. Like, you know,
Exactly. And they get mad at us when we talk about games we haven't played yet. Even if we have the
Right.
disclosure, we haven't played this yet, but we've heard that
Yeah.
this is good.
like, yeah, like talking about games in a preview sense, where it's like, I'm interested in playing this, and here's why. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm being
There's
very
nothing wrong with
forthcoming
that.
about it. Like, that's
Like,
how
why do we
people-
buy it? We're telling you why.
right, yeah, because it looks interesting, and I'd like an opportunity to play it. So yeah, I tend to, I don't know, when people give those sorts of, that sort of feedback where they're like telling me how to make changes to a video or whatever, I honestly, and this sounds like touchy feely hippy dippy bullshit, but I do try to like approach those sorts of comments from the perspective of not assuming that they're trying to be an asshole, but that they're socially awkward and don't know how to
A lot of people are
this.
bad
Like
at
they don't know
writing
how to.
and trying to express.
People are
yeah.
a lot of expressing
Emotion.
mhm. A lot of people have issues with that, and I've had I promise you I'm not making this up. I've had like probably dozens of instances at this point. Well, I don't want to exaggerate. I'm going to put a number on it, but a lot of instances at this point where I've gone ahead and approached somebody's comment like that from the perspective that they're not being an asshole and they just are socially awkward. And then I've ended up in like a pleasant exchange back and forth with the person. So like,
Yeah.
there's
You have to pick your battles, though.
You do have to pick your battles, and I don't do that for every comment, but there are opportunities even in the creator space to like, I don't know, build a bridge instead of a wall sort of thing, where it's like, rather than assuming the worst immediately about somebody.
It's just like the
even though
reactionary stuff we were talking about and letting our emotions,
Mhm.
fuel us. Like I know I've
yeah.
gotten caught by this a few times myself, and I've been trying
Mhm.
not to, engage in
Yeah.
a downward spiral of negativity and calling someone out when they said something weird, like in a comment.
Right. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the weird ones I got on that last list, and I'm pretty sure both of you saw my post about it. A dude didn't like how I said libraries, and he made a comment. He's like, as soon as I heard you say libraries, I clicked off. Have some comment engagement as a door prize, and I was like, okay, guy, I'm sorry you don't like my like northeastern way of pronouncing it, where the R isn't
the
pronounced.
cringiest
That
compliment.
must mean I'm a completely uneducated fool and I'm not qualified to talk about anything. But it is hard. Like, okay, he's being a smartass, but that is a mean-spirited comment. There's nothing constructive about that.
Nothing constructive.
And he's trying to call me
No, that's
stupid,
something that I
and
even acknowledge.
it
to be
does
honest.
make you mad. It does
Yeah.
make you mad. And I was like, I'm
Yeah.
sitting there reading it and I'm like, fuck this guy. This is ridiculous. And like, it's hard to get away from that. And especially like, I'm used to in like my everyday life, like I'm a huge dude. Like if you viewers don't know, I'm 6'8", big dude, huge beard. I look evil. And no one comes up and says stuff like that to me in real life. And it's been hard for me to adapt to the online environment when everyone has the anonymity of their keyboard. Oh, they're going to get me on how I said that. Anonymity. Yeah, and they can
I don't say it
whatever
right
they
half the time
want
either.
without me like chasing them down an alley. And like it drives me crazy because like you do sometimes feel powerless. So I don't want to downplay it. Like we can joke about it, but I can honestly say some of the comments have upset me. And even to the point where I'm like, why am I doing this? And like, I know it's a little thing and I do get over it, but like, it's hard. And
it's like the analogy, 1,000 paper cuts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And in me, it's like 5 paper cuts. But more will come as I grow and I will have a harder time dealing with it. And hopefully my skin thickens, but especially those ones, right? If you want to question how I'm collecting games or if I have too much stuff or I'm wasting my money, that's fine. You're just questioning one of my decisions. The guy was
Right.
literally calling me stupid for the way I speak. And
Right,
that
if you're gonna
really
be
gets me because I'm
personal.
someone that feels like I speak very eloquently and I'm a very good communicator. And it
Mhm.
really upset me. And it was funny. I told that to Zoo, one of our friends, and he went on there and lit the guy up on my comments. And I was like, oh, ooh. Like he said some terrible stuff to him. Like I'm surprised YouTube didn't take it off.
Yeah,
But
Zoo will go off
Ended
if
up.
you give him that. Yeah.
but yeah, it was cool that he came to my
Yeah.
defense, but I was like, damn, calm down, dude.
I
But
think
yeah.
I think the best thing you can do with that is have a group of friends who especially understand what you're going through. Like it's one thing to have friends and vent to friends that aren't in the YouTube game or whatever. And that's important too, but like having friends that really do understand what you're talking about when you're going through something like that is important. And like you said, like building that kind of thicker skin so that it doesn't bother you as you get more and more of the negative comments going
Mhm.
as you grow. Like that's what helps you build that skin.
Yeah. And having a safe space to vent, I think is very important.
Yeah.
That way you don't accidentally, let something out like on social media or something, and it kind of could bite you, in the ass
Right.
Mhm.
if you worded it a certain way.
For
Right.
sure. And I will say that
Or,
like
create the
Discord
just
has
the
been a heaven sent for that. I'm in a couple
yeah.
Discords and we have a very active one at Cold Nights. And they're all great places to be able to speak privately or semi-privately away from prying eyes. Because I think most creators have leaned towards the private Discord that's kind of like invite only. Because the public ones, it's just basically Twitter 2.0. If you let everyone in there, all the
It's
trolls
too
are coming
much.
in. Yeah.
Mhm.
Trying to regulate that stuff, that's why I haven't started one.
Yeah.
I
It's
just and I can't put like it on mods too, because I would feel bad
Right.
that they would spend so much energy on that, and it doesn't seem worth it.
yeah,
That's honestly why
Unfortunately.
I did mine as a Patreon thing because I'm not
Mhm.
big enough that I'm going to expect 1,000 patrons even at a low price point. So it's like for the time being, at least, like I can
Yeah.
have a Discord and engage
Yeah.
with people in there and have good conversations, and it's not 1,000 people trying to, you know what I mean? Like, so that's been my solution to that. But I know you curate, Jay. Like you have like your Discord is not completely open. It's like you're curating who's a part of it, right?
Yeah, it's literally like the original creators I came up with and trust and are friends. Like I've opened
Right.
it so that if you guys have people that you wanted to invite, and people have, then that's cool.
Mhm.
And we've never really had any bad eggs, and the ones that were dealt with as quickly as possible and not welcome back.
Mhm.
So it's really worked great. So I do suggest that to everyone if you're getting into the game. It's a great support system to make friends with other creators, not only for the networking and working with them and trying to grow with them, but as friends and
Claps.
supports and someone you can talk to.
Mhm.
Because there's too many people in the game that are just about numbers, and they'll only
Right.
deal with you if you have
Mhm.
X amount of numbers, and they'll only deal with you if you have X amount of successful videos and you're monetized and all that. And none of the people in the circles I run with are like that, and I'm so thankful.
Mhm.
Thankful for the fact that they dealt with me, and thankful that they've dealt with all the smaller creators that came after me, and that I would never treat people like that because I've seen that it's no good as well. So that's
Yeah.
definitely the key, I think, is having a supportive community. But I don't mean your broad community. I mean your private community.
Mhm.
Because I see people vent to Twitter and it always goes bad. If you complain about your videos doing bad or someone saying something mean to you, your intentions might have been good, but more trolls are drawn to that.
Mhm.
I've seen someone say, "Oh, I
There's
hate it
that.
when someone says this," and then all of a sudden people are causing more trouble for you, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Damn!" Like, so I don't
But
dare
also
do
you
it.
have to be cautious about what you don't see, because when you post something, not everyone's going to react, right?
That's true.
So
They
you don't
could
know
be
what they're thinking.
they could be in Discord calls talking about you. Like, did you see what Jason
Well, I'm
posted?
not
That
saying
was
it
damn
just behind
crazy.
your back or anything like that.
Yeah,
It just their respect for you might go down, and they'll be less inclined to watch your content.
Mhm.
I've literally seen people implode. Like, I remember one, and I don't remember
Yeah.
his name, so I can't name drop. Not that I would, anyways. But he was saying, I have 1,300, 1,400 subscribers, and no one watches my videos, and you guys are the reason I'm stressed out and I'm ruined. And
I saw
his
that too.
boom, destroyed, all
That, yeah,
gone.
that was
You're
bad.
ruined.
Oh, I missed that.
time to stop doing YouTube.
No one in our circle.
You're
or
talking,
even in
you're
our
talking about me, right?
niche.
That was me, right?
And it's one thing to be like, hey guys, my last video is struggling. Can you guys please take a look or share it? That's different than going on and being like, you
boosting's
fuckers
fine.
didn't watch my video. I'm depressed because
Don't
of
blame
you.
people for not watching.
Yeah, you
It
all
means you
owe
didn't
me.
make a clickable title or thumbnail.
You owe me.
You can make a topic that would interest your audience.
That's
and
important.
90% of the time, that is legitimately what it is. Like, I can remember a time, specifically, one of the times that M helped me out, I had a video that I thought was brilliant. And I put it out, and after like a day, it's got like 20 views. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I said it to the Discord, and M messages me. She's like, your thumbnail isn't right for this. Let's try this. And I did it. I followed her advice because she's very successful. And it didn't do like gangbusters, but it got a couple hundred views when it had like 10 before. And I was like, hell yes. So like, again, having the support group of actual talented creators and people that are doing what you're doing, that was much more helpful than me going on Twitter and being like, why is no one watching my video?
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
That, and also just it doesn't like there are plenty of talented creators that haven't been found yet, and I think just getting a lot of different opinions and different perspectives is really insightful for your own videos.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, so
and I think what we found too is just kind of carving out our unique area in the sphere is what makes us more successful, rather than doing what everyone else is doing.
Right. And I think like I can speak for myself, and maybe you guys agree, like the creative community that I've now become a part of, which obviously includes you two, has also been great because you guys also are awesome, just people and friends. So like, it's one thing to have somebody that you can rely on as like in a mentorship sort of way, or like providing advice, but then also like we could turn the recording off and I could just sit here and chat with you guys for like the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it'd be fine. You know what I mean? Like that's no, whatever.
You don't have to monetize it.
Right. It doesn't have to be monetized even. I'm fine with that. And just like building this community of people that I feel connected to and that I share interests with, because I think I've said this before, but like, my IRL friends, the people that I see in real life, they don't share this hobby with me at all. They're not interested. And like if they play video games, they play Rocket League or I don't know. What is another game that is broadly popular that I would know about?
Fortnite.
Maybe Fortnite. No, I don't know. Maybe they're too old for that, but you know what I mean? Like
my dad plays it. He is 70.
Oh, okay.
He plays it almost every day.
All right. So there's a broad audience for it. But yeah, I mean, like, it's great to have this platform to be able to, if nothing else, like if I didn't have an audience, like I would still enjoy it because I get to hang out with people like you guys, and that's, that makes it more than worth it to me.
Yeah, I found so much more fulfillment, the people I've met along the way, rather than, the videos themselves, honestly.
Yeah, because like, again, like a lot of people, they're all about content. And it's refreshing to, like, Brandon, for instance, has done a ton of streams with me. And it's cool that there's another creator willing to stream with me. And yes, maybe some of his audience will see me and discover me, and that can be cool. But I'm literally playing a game with my friend, like I would when I was a teenager. And it's not for business. I'm not paying him. He's not paying me. We're having fun playing Castle Crashers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And that's something you really can't get. I mean, I know that as I've gotten older, I'm 40, and there's a lot less of my 40-year-old friends, 45-year-old friends that are still playing games. We are kind of a niche community. So I don't want to play games with 17-year-olds, right? They don't talk about the same things I do. They're not interested in the same things I do. I want to play games with people that are 30, 40, 50 years old, because we're not just going to be playing the games. We're going to be talking on chat and discussing our lives and our interests. And that's so much cooler than just an anonymous like Fortnite match, or playing a random basketball or baseball game against someone online. It makes it more personal and special. And I really think that that's a side that no one really talks about. I see all these advice videos about getting into YouTube and streaming and all that, and no one's talking about that. they'll talk about, hey, find people that know what they're doing and basically take advantage of them, but they're not like, hey, build like some lifelong friends. Like I was just thinking about it the other day. I've known you two for almost 2 years and talked to both of you almost every day for 2 years. And there's like 5 or 6 of us that I met at the same time. And some of them are no longer my friends. It doesn't always work out. But like it's cool to have known people that long that are always available and we share something in common. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And it's I'm not saying everyone should get into YouTube. There's a lot of stress to it and all that. But there's a lot of cool stuff too.
It's
like we're not being all negative. It's not all gatekeeping and hatred and tribalism.
Right.
There's cool stuff. Like us.
Yeah, there are benefits.
Right.
Cons,
For
but
sure.
also benefits.
Yep.
For sure. Okay, so we're gonna do a slightly different lightning round. So we're gonna cue the intro. All right, so we are in the lightning round, and today we are doing a special lightning round where we are going to go over consoles and our favorite games for those consoles. Now, we talked about this before the show, and keep in mind, Emily is quite a few years younger than myself, and maybe Brandon. I'm not sure. Brandon's ageless, but so she may not have played some of the earlier consoles, so she may not have answers for that. But we're gonna
As a
just go
PC
through
gamer
some...
when I was younger.
Right. So we're going to go through some basic ones. And we're going to start with probably one that we've all played. So we're going to start with Nintendo. Brandon, what is your favorite Nintendo game?
Original Nintendo.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Ooh. Teenage Mutant
That
Ninja
we've all
Turtles
played.
2, the arcade game.
Nice.
That's a hot take. I didn't know that I was going to say that, but that just came out of me. I guess it's true. I don't know.
Did you have a favorite one, Em?
I never actually physically played that console before.
Okay. It is
We
literally
had...
before your time.
I grew up with very few consoles.
I would say
and
that...
I probably played remasters of some games. I just can't think of any right now.
I would say that my favorite was probably Uninvited.
Ooh,
That was like young me playing a horror narrative story game. Really special. Started my love for horror. All right.
Nice.
So what about Sega Genesis?
Echo the Dolphin.
Oh, that's my wife. It's my wife's favorite. Em, did you get to play a lot of Genesis or no?
I've never played any Sega console.
Oh no, that's gonna hurt when we get up to the Dreamcast. I love the Dreamcast.
So then I get to pick another one. I get to pick another one, right? Because she doesn't have one.
Yeah,
So
you get to pick two when I don't have one.
Yeah, my other favorite is let's say I gotta look at my shelf. I don't know, maybe Rocket Knight Adventures. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'd say that for Sega, I'm pretty basic. I really liked Sonic 2, and I was really bad at it. So I literally would play like the first 3 levels and die, and then play the first 3 levels and die, and then play the first 3 levels and die. So I have
it was eye-opening. It was eye-opening for me to play Sonic 2 when we realized that we didn't know, because we didn't read instruction manuals back then, that my brother could play with me, that he could be Tails. And like he was much younger than me. He's 6 years younger than me. So when I was 10, he was 4. So he wasn't really good at video games yet, but we could play together, and it didn't matter if Tails died because he'd just come back. And that was like so cool. Like that was the coolest thing in the world, to be able to play together and not have it negatively affect the game. You know what I mean? Like to be able to collaborate like that.
All right, so we'll jump forward a little bit, and we'll go to the Game Boy Advance.
I'll start. Mine's my favorite game of all time, even though it didn't start out on the GBA, but that's A Link to the Past, the remastered.
The Four Swords version, right?
Yes, the Four Swords version.
Sorry, I realized I just like spoke for you. I don't know if that's mansplaining.
Okay.
I'll mansplain Emily's favorite game for her.
Damn it, Brandon.
You just added the extra title. It's all right. That I left off.
Right. Game Boy Advance, that's a console generation I kind of skipped. I did have one, but I wasn't playing games much at the time. But probably maybe Castlevania, either Harmony of Dissonance or Circle of the Moon. Maybe Harmony of Dissonance. No, Aria of Sorrow. Aria of Sorrow. Hell yeah.
Final Fantasy 4. My
There it
first
goes.
experience with it. And
Oh,
this
it
was
was on
the one that
Advance.
they like remade. And it was so special. And this was really my first experience with anything other than like the popular modern titles at the time. Like I wasn't one of those people that did a ton of like emulation, so I hadn't gone back and played a lot of these games. So this one was like a really special one to be able to experience. I keep eyeing it because I only have it loose, sitting up on the shelf, and I'm like, damn it, I want to pop it in. I want to play that. So I got to get around to that again.
Nice. Yeah.
All right. So what about the Game Boy Advance?
Didn't we just do that?
We just did that one.
Wait,
How about color? I had the
am
color.
I losing my mind? Nintendo DS.
DS.
A DS. Okay.
That was. I don't know if I'll cut that out or if that was funny. It was kind of funny.
Whatever. It's late on your
Yeah.
end. Just playing that.
Oh, so you see the DS, right? Yeah, I gotta look too. It's probably cheating to say Chrono Trigger because
You can say
that's
it.
my
We
favorite
missed. We
Super
skipped that
Nintendo
era.
game. Yeah, that's
I
true.
should have probably told you guys we were doing this.
as a remake, Chrono Trigger. But if we're going just a pure DS experience, maybe like The World Ends with You would be like my top.
Once, yeah. I've only recently gotten into the DS because I kind of skipped to the 3DS, but the one I have played is the Layton games, so I've been enjoying those.
Those
So,
are great. Yeah.
Professor
Oh,
Layton
nice.
and the Curious Village was the first one, but I'm still working my way on the other ones.
So I will say it's a series of games, the 2 fighting games and the strategy RPG that they made for Bleach. All 3 of those games are incredible licensed anime games, some of my favorite ever. If you don't have them, pick them up. Beautiful things. All right, so what about Dreamcast?
Dreamcast. I'm gonna pretend that I had a Dreamcast and played the Dreamcast.
Am I the
when
only
was
one that's going to
younger.
answer this one?
Maybe.
Let me look at. Hang on. Let me look at my Dreamcast collection. Oh, the cases are too small. I can't read the names.
Yes. Do you have a lot?
I've got like I don't know 20. And I don't like I have a Dreamcast, but I don't have the cables to plug it in, so I've never played any of them. But yeah, I got to pass. Sorry.
So I have
Jay,
not only
You're up.
a great love for the Dreamcast, but I have the much rarer version, the Sega Sports Dreamcast.
The
that
Sports,
has Sega Sports
yeah.
printed on it. It's the black one. It's
Right.
not worth a ton more because the Dreamcast is kind of bottomed out. It's worth like 10 or 20 bucks more, but it's really cool. It sounds like a jet engine now when I start it up. And Sonic Adventure 2 and Shenmue were 2 incredible experiences. When I got the Dreamcast, I was aware, I was into the video game industry news. I was aware it was dying, it was doomed, and I still wanted it so bad. And it still was full price at Walmart, and my parents still bought it for me for Christmas because I kept begging and begging, and I was so damn happy to have it. So I know a lot of people aren't into it, and I'll always sing its praises, but yeah, I loved it. So
it was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. It really was. Like my brother had one, but he bought it after it was already kind of killed off, so he got it for a song. Like he barely paid anything for it, brand new.
All right. So we're actually running out of time. We've been having such a good time talking. I just looked up and it says 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Oh,
so real quick, I got the big question for you. Nintendo Switch.
I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or you can go first.
Trails from Zero.
I was going to say Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Sure. I love all the Xenoblade games, but that one's the one that's really stuck with me.
I'm going to change my answer to Xenoblade 3. Xenoblade 3.
3 is great as well. And Future Redeemed.
Future Redeemed.
All great games. All great games. All right, guys, real quick, less than a minute. Brandon, where can we find you?
I'm on YouTube at Just the Gems. I'm on Twitter at just Brandon Johnson, but I spell my name with an E instead of an O.
And where can we find you?
Orbalology here on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, and some other places, but mostly those 3.
All right, guys, thank you both for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you. Viewers, thank you so much for watching. And as always, stay creepy. Bye, guys.